In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use an FTP program to upload your WordPress files from your computer up to your web server. So to get started, I'm going to open up my FTP program. In this case, I'm using a program called FileZilla. It's a free program you can get from the internet. And if you look in the top left corner here, you see some fields that need to be filled out. And by filling out these fields, I'm going to connect to the web server. So it's making an online connection. So under host, I'm going to start by putting in my domain name, and I can do this without using the www, because in this case I'm not using the World Wide Web, which is what the www stands for, but instead I'm using something called FTP. So for my domain here, I'm going to put in geoguide.info. Then I'm going to put in the username and password that I have set up for that hosting account, and that's the information that you would have received from your website hosting company. So I'll start with my username. In this case, it's geoguide. And then I'll enter in my password. And hit enter. And you'll see here it has made the connection. And the rest of the screen is divided up into two halves. We have a left half and a right half. On the left half, I'll just scroll this up so you can see a little bit more. I've got my folder structure set up on my own computer, where I've got my geoguide.info folder. And then within that, I have the public HTML folder. And the way that this is set up, you see on the first line here, it shows you exactly which folder that you're in. That corresponds to the folder structure down here. And depending on which one's highlighted here, it will show you the contents of that folder down in this window. I can easily navigate by clicking on the different folders. So you see when I click on this one now, it shows up the new folder structure up here, as well as it shows you the contents of that folder. In this case, there isn't anything in there. I can also change it by simply clicking in here and editing this text, hit enter, and now you see I've jumped up to a different folder. So I'll go back to the public HTML folder, because that is where all of my folders and files are that make up the WordPress website. And on the right side here, this is the remote server, or also known as the web server. So right now it's in the main root directory. That's why there's just a slash, as you see down here as well. And then within that folder, you see everything that has to do with my hosting account. Now, there's a lot of things in here that really you don't want to play with unless you really know what you're doing. But what I'm going to be interested in is going down to the public HTML folder, which is right here. So in order to go into that, what I'm going to do is simply double-click it. And now you can see up here, I am in the public HTML folder, and there is nothing in there. So what I want to do is I want to take everything from the left side, which is on my local computer, and move it over here to the right side, which is on the web server. And actually, I'm not moving it, but I'm going to be copying it. And the way that I do that is I'm going to highlight all of these. So I'll do that by simply clicking the first item. Then I'll scroll all the way down. And then I'm going to hold the Shift key on my computer keyboard and click on the last item. And then that will highlight everything from the first file all the way down to the last file. Now, if I scroll up, you'll notice that the very first one is a folder called .dot. Now, this is something that is typical of a Linux operating system, or in this case, a Mac operating system. What that basically means is that if I were to double-click that folder to go into it, it actually goes up one folder. So if I were to double-click on this, it would take me from the public HTML folder up into the parent folder. So in this case, I don't need to highlight that folder. And you'll see the same thing is true over here on the web server. There's also the folder with the .dot. Now what I'll do is I'll just simply drag and drop all of these folders and files, and drag them over here. And now what's going to happen is it's going to start to copy. So you see a lot of things happening on your screen right now. If you look at the top here, this is where you can see the actual files being transferred. Down in the bottom here, it's telling you a little bit more information as well about the individual files being transferred. Now this is going very, very quickly. And down in the bottom left corner, you can see the queued files, and that number is going down, the failed transfers, and then also the successful transfers. So you want to keep an eye on this. You don't have to wait for it the whole time and watch it, but by the time it's done, you want to have a quick peek here and double check if there are any failed transfers. So what I'll do is I'll pause the video here and come back once it's done, and we'll take a look. So now some time has passed, and you can see here on the bottom left, the queued files is empty, there were no failed transfers, and it has successfully transferred all 1,062 files. So that's quite a lot of files, and admittedly it did take a minute or two. Depending on your internet connection speed, it may take a little bit longer, or it might go a little bit quicker depending on how your setup is. And what we can see here now is on the left side, which is my local computer, I have all these files, and on the right side I have these as well. Now, in my particular case, I'm using a Mac operating system, and on a Mac operating system, what they will have is they will have this file called .ds_store. This is something that is always going to be in various folders within my Mac operating system. If you have a Windows operating system, you won't have this, but you'll see because it was highlighted, it was also moved over here onto my web server. This is a file that I don't need to have on here. If I want to, I can delete that file. I can also leave it there. It doesn't make a difference, really. It doesn't hurt it to be there. If I did want to delete it, I can do that simply by clicking on that to select it. I can right-click, and then I can say delete. You'll notice that by right-clicking on a file, you will have various options here. I can also rename and change the file permissions and do various different things with it. In this case, I'm just simply going to delete it. It asks for a confirmation. I'll click on yes, and you can see now that that is gone. So that's how you can work with the individual files here. So in this tutorial now, you have seen how to go and take all of your files from your local computer and move them over to your web server so that they are now on your hosting account.